Begin Podfix Network transmission. In 3, 2, 1.
Whether you're fly fishing in a stream, getting those ankles wet, or deep in the ocean casting nets, fish nerds. Fish nerds. Fish nerds. It's a podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Fish Nerds, a show about fish, fishing, and eating fish. I'm Clay Groves, Chief Executive Fish Nerd, licensed fishing guide, your best friend. And you may have not have noticed this, but we are rolling the odometer on the podcast today to episode 300. So Doc Martin is with me. Hi, Doc.
Woo! Yay! Hi.
You were with me for episode 200.
I was. That was a pretty exciting week
on
for
my
me.
on my boat. Yeah, that was a ton of fun. And this one snuck up on me. You know, actually, this is episode number 300, but I did a little podcast math the other day, which you should never do. And actually, I've released over 500 episodes if you count all the bonus stuff I've done. So sometimes I'll release back in November, we did 30 shows in a month. Well, I've done that 3 years in a row. So that's 90 shows in addition. So there's and then a lot of other stuff here and there. So over 500 things have been released, but this is our 300th official episode. And I'm happy that you're with us. You've been with us since almost the beginning.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Quite a long time.
What number episode I was, but it was what?
Like 2013, 14.
I was going to guess 2013. Yeah.
Yeah. Quite a long time ago. So,
wow.
And I think
10 years.
God, I know, right? I've never figured out how to make money on this.
Yeah.
But I don't care anymore because I just enjoy talking about fish. So we're happy to be here.
That's right.
Yeah. So before we get too deep in, Doc, you're working on some stuff. You're working on a journal entry and you're looking for photos. Can you tell us about what you're looking for? Yeah,
sure. So I don't know if do I talk about my role as an editor very often on the show?
No, do it now.
Yeah. So I'm the editor for a peer review science journal. We're called Transactions of the Kansas Academy of Science. Our journal's been around since the mid 1800s. And I just took over recently from longtime editors, Pam and Mike Everhart, just the best people. They have been so nice and great in this transition and hope they enjoy their retirement. But Mike is a paleontologist who works at a museum and a photographer. And so one of the things that he and Pam used to do with this is they would have photo essays and photo contests and things like that a lot. Now, as Clay knows, one of the reasons that I got on the Fish Nerds originally was because of a terrible drawing that I did. My art has much improved in the last 10 years.
We call that practice.
But it's still not very good. But I'm not a photographer. I take pictures on my phone. That's about as good as it gets. But I do want to continue the photo essay and photo contests that Pam and Mike had because I think it's fun. Mm-hmm. And so I just look for science-y or nature photos. And so I am inviting the Fish Nerds listeners to enter into a photo contest and we'll publish the top 5.
Well, that'd be fun.
There are some rules.
Oh, let's hear it.
So I need the images to be at least 300 DPI for resolution purposes. Otherwise, it won't be press quality. And then it can be black and white or in color. It doesn't really matter. But I do need a short blurb to go along with it. So tell me what is happening in the photo, just a couple sentences. Mm-hmm. And, science-y, nature. So if you're just a fish or stream or nature enthusiast and you take a lot of great photos, awesome. Tell me about the photo that you submitted. Please only submit like one per person. I think that's a reasonable thing. And if you're a scientist or science communicator or adjacent and you work in a lab or you do outdoors things or you have students that work under you or whatever that looks like, those are also welcome and encouraged.
Okay. So then the question is, how are we going to get these pictures to you?
Yeah, sure. So how about via email? Does that work?
Email works fine. Sure.
Yeah. So why don't we send them to my Gmail address? And so I'll say that now, but then Clay, can you post that in the show notes?
Absolutely.
Cool. And so my Gmail address is erikacecocology at gmail.com, and I will spell it. erikacecocology at gmail.com.
Got it. And it's in the show notes already. So we will make sure
Awesome.
that gets out. And we'll also, we can make a little Facebook post about it so people can go to Facebook, our website, fishnerds.com, and make sure all the information is out there. And we'd love to see Fish Nerds listeners flood Erica with with fish pictures. And we're not really looking for pictures of fish on a hook. This is for, we want to think environmental stuff. So
yeah. Like just enjoying the environment or lab or research space or conservation work or appreciation, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, these are not the hold up your fish selfie photos.
Those are my favorite.
Those are great, but those have a different place to be,
right?
Not in transactions.
No, but when you're out fishing, you're seeing nature, you're seeing beautiful things. Get those shots.
Yes, exactly. So shots of maybe your fishing experience would be fine.
Okay, good.
And then the due date will be March 21st at the end of the day.
All right, March 21st, 2022. Get after it because that's coming up fast. So.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty soon. We go to press in April, and so I have to have kind of everything wrapped up by the end of March to get to my press folks. So it has to be a pretty quick turnaround time. But yeah, if you want to do that, please do. And if you have any questions, you can find us, Fish Nerds or me, on Facebook. Ask questions that way too if you're not sure what to do.
Easy enough. Well, I thought we'd start today with the news, Erica, and see how far we get before I got to cut you off, okay?
Sounds good.
Because you're not going to be here for the whole episode. You're going to be here for part of the episode.
Yeah, and just a brief reminder while Clay's getting the news ready, we also have the microplastics sign up, right? So you can still go and sign up there through the end of March as well.
Oh, good. Have you gotten some signups for that?
Yeah, I did. Well, I haven't checked it in a couple weeks, but the last time I checked, before I shared it, it was just through Fish Nerd signups. We had almost 20.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And then I've shared it to some local folks that are around here, some people that are science communicators that I know, and I actually haven't looked recently. So, so far I'm very pleased.
Well, I'll put that link in addition into the show notes as well, so people have it.
Yes, all sorts of cool stuff going on in Doc Martin land.
All right, let's do some news.
Cool.
News, fish in the news. Everybody loves their fish in the news.
All right, today the theme of the news is eating fish, Doc. We have a couple of stories about eating fish. The first one I want to talk about, the headline is Florida will allow farm-raised largemouth bass to be sold as food. And this is kind of a unique thing. We don't usually see largemouth bass as a table food, except I've seen them in Asian markets. So if you go to like Chinatown, you'll see largemouth bass in tanks there for sale. I'm not even sure it's legal, but I've seen it. So and in most states, most freshwater fish are not legal to sell as food. And so Florida just legalized largemouth bass. And they're actually not a common table food. A lot of fisher people turn their nose up at the idea of eating these fishes. So, but there's some problems that come in with fish farming, with all fish farming, and these are going to be no different, I think.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I would wonder. I'm sure that just the general rules of fish farming concerns apply to largemouth bass as they do with all the other farm fishes. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Florida's had a couple interesting pieces of legislation passed last year.
Well, let's focus on the fish and not on the on the bills that are political, because I think it's a little bit easier to digest for us, because you and I agree largely on what's wrong with stuff. But the big controversy with this though is not necessarily the environmental problems you get with fish farming, because Florida has I think it's over 1,700 freshwater fish farms already, with things like tilapia, catfish, that sort of thing. So this is already common practice in Florida. The biggest concern with this is people are really afraid that northern bass, like from New Hampshire, will get down to Florida and interbreed with their native largemouth basses. And then those will escape into the wild, and they'll end up with kind of like a less good strain of fish for fishing for. So that's the biggest debate going on with this whole thing.
So I have not seen this, so you'll have to forgive my ignorance here.
I'll help you.
So there are genetically distinct northern largemouth bass that Florida is concerned will just genetically invade their southern largemouth bass.
Right.
Are they actually different taxonomic species?
No, they're not.
Or is this a genetic diversity?
Is diversity. So just like with brook trout, for example, up here in New England, we have wild brook trout, we have native brook trout, and then we have like stocked brook trout, which are kind of like this generic brook trout. They're like just the easy to grow brook trout.
Yep.
I want
and
to
there are distinct genetic differences between those. I'm more familiar with that for sure.
but they're all the same species. They're all the same animal. They can interbreed with each other. And then if you travel around New England, you'll find the native brook trout have strains. So like if you go to Kennebec, up to Moosehead Lake in Maine, there's a strain of brook trout called the Kennebec brook trout. And actually looks different than every other brook trout I've ever seen. In fact, when I caught one, I had to have a biologist look at it and tell me what it was because it didn't look like a brook trout anymore. So you have that, just like any other animal that grows up in an area, it's going to have it's going to match its environment. So Florida's concerned about this happening. So the rules are in place that the only fish they can grow on these fish farms are native largemouth bass from Florida. So that's kind of the way the rules are being written now. Yeah. And I'm not sure it matters. The interesting fun fact is in the northern United States, especially in New England, largemouth bass aren't even native fishes up here. They are brought up here from Florida back in the 1880s.
Right. Yeah,
so
that's right.
We do have Florida bass up here, but they've been here so long, they're going to be very different animals because it's been over 100-something years.
I just wonder, so when we talk about like differences in trout and other, I would say maybe the more commonly understood, especially for me, differences between aquaculture fishes and native fishes. Some of the concerns are behavioral differences and then just survival differences, which some of that has to do with behavior and some of it doesn't. And susceptibility to disease and things like that. So I imagine that's probably part of the concern there, but I am totally unfamiliar with differences in aquaculture largemouth bass versus native largemouth bass.
Well, that's the interesting thing is I've never heard of aquaculture for largemouth bass before.
No.
Like to me, this is such a unique thing because bass are one of those fishes that like trout don't sustain themselves when you start moving them around. When you start seeding populations, they don't do great. And that's why we keep stocking trout over and over again because you don't have the population you need for recreation or what people are doing with them. They just don't do well. But bass do. You drop a couple of bass in a pond or in a river system, and if they can reproduce, they're gonna be prolific. And they're gonna, like New Hampshire was bassed one time.
The bassing of New Hampshire.
That's
Talk
right.
all about it.
That's right. It was done one time all over the state, and you never had to do it again. And so bass are such a hardy fish that they just do fine. So I think it's a valid concern, but Florida never seems to care about native fishes. Their waters are full of invasives. And
more than just their water, Florida has a significant general invasive reptiles and all that kind of stuff.
Everything.
They've got a lot going on down there.
Everything.
And not too surprising given, a lot of it is just movement of people. And there's a lot of people moving around in Florida and traveling to and from tropical climates. It's just a little bit easier to invade anyway. Not so hard, not such a harsh environment. So they've got kind of ripe for the picking there for any species that wants to take root.
Well, and with fishes, so you always you think, okay, well, what if I had my largemouth bass farm and I had self-contained, so bass can't escape. There's no rivers coming in, there's no rivers going out. But then you think about Florida, it gets significant storms. And those storms,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Those storms are going to wreck all your best plans, and those fish are going to find a way out. So I think it's a valid concern. But I'm just super curious what the market is for it. I'm curious if it's going to work. Would you eat largemouth bass from a fish farm?
I mean, probably. I don't have anything just distinctly wrong with that, I guess. Mostly I would be interested in are the farmed fish healthier in terms of things like heavy metal contaminants or other pollutants? My guess would be probably yes.
Yeah, you can keep that out,
they should be better. I don't know that because I just don't know.
Mhm.
And then what's the ecological footprint of having something farmed versus something that's native, right? So, for example, if I'm eating something that's native, that's caught wild, maybe that's good for the population, but maybe it isn't, right? That could be contributing to something like overfishing. So
Right.
I mean, that's a long answer to a short question, Clay.
To say, I don't know. Well, it's funny because a lot of anglers won't eat bass. Bass taste delicious, though. They're just a nice flaky white meat, so they taste like whatever.
Well, Napoleon Dynamite
Oh,
told
yeah.
us how delicious bass are.
Got you a delicious bass. So
I don't think it's a largemouth, though.
yeah,
That's okay.
it doesn't matter, but they taste fine. They taste fine. So the question is too, and this is the next question, and one of the problems is so now you get farmed bass. You create a market. People get a taste for bass. Well, the next logical marketing thing, just like we see with salmon, is wild caught bass. So people will now market the wildness of their bass, or it's almost like they're
Totally.
It's almost like calling it organic, right? So then it opens up a whole other bucket of worms, I think. So to
Bucket of
speak. Yeah, so to speak. Anyway, so who knows what's going to happen with this? I'll be keeping an eye on it, and but I'm not totally against it. I don't see why you would farm one fish and not another. I don't have a problem with bass as a farmed fish, but there are problems with farms I have a problem with. But I don't care what species there is necessarily. It's just
It will be interesting.
It will be interesting to see how that plays out, and to see if there's a
No
market.
matter what, it's guaranteed drama.
Guaranteed. Well, no one's ever going to be happy with everything.
No.
All right. Well, moving on here. A new study just suggests that eating salmon feed fish instead of farm salmon might be a healthier way to live. And Doc, I've been a few years ago. I traveled around a lot, did a lot of public speaking, and I went to the Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Center, and I did a whole presentation there. And the whole thing about sustainable fisheries and eating wild sustainable fish was eat the bait. I talked about eat small, eat low on the food chain, the whole thing. And so the article goes in really deep here on how many tons of small fish have to be chopped up and ground up and fed to farmed fish in order for that farmed salmon to get to your table. So then the suggestion that the whole article comes out is, why don't you just eat the fish they're eating? And
Yeah, it's like the 10% rule, right?
Yeah.
Of energy accumulation going up versus that, and then that's how much it takes as the biomass changes and energy movement up the trophic level. It just to eat a top tier carnivore, you're having to acquire a lot more energy, not only from that, but from everything that it eats. And that's how bioaccumulation works, and all that stuff up the food chain just gets magnified.
right. Well, here's actual numbers here. So back in 2014,
Numbers, yay.
460,000 tons of wild caught fish were caught to produce 179,000 tons of salmon, of farmed salmon.
Oops.
Yeah. So what is that like?
Yeah.
And then most of the fish they're using for that are already fish that already are in the market. So things like sardines and anchovies, which humans already recognize as food fish, those are the ones being used to make the fish food. So they're saying just eat more anchovies, just eat more sardines. Here's where they're going with this article.
Fish and bugs, protein of the future.
I think so. I think so.
Bait fish and bugs.
Yeah, and that's really the whole article. There's not a lot to it. I just wanted to I like to find it's always nice once in a while to see an article that says what I've been saying for years. It kind of like that. It's gratifying.
Confirmation bias?
That's the word. I feel confirmed.
Easy, Clay, easy. I teach whole classes on that problem.
I know. Well, but it also feels good sometimes. But like it or not, it feels good to okay, I was right about something. All right, and finally, Doc, you might have seen this one. Scientists made a fish from human cardiac cells, and it swims
I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
No, this is new.
This is so cool. So scientists are trying to grow human hearts in a lab to help with babies with heart problems, and they've been failing. But now they found out that they can do it, and they were able to grow this fish. They're calling it a fish, but they're able to grow this muscle tissue that beats like a heart, and they actually insert it into some fins and stuff and put it in the water. It swims around in a saline solution. And and guess how long it lived in this solution, flapping around with they didn't add anything to it. Once they got it going, it went, guess how long? Do you guess the number?
Weeks.
100 days.
Oh, that's pretty good.
This
So that's
muscle.
weeks.
Yeah, this muscle, this heart beat for 100 days. They use cardiomyocytes grown from stem cells. And they're really what they're doing. They're trying to grow hearts. And this is kind of on their track to getting it. So this is a huge thing. They call it a biohybrid
awesome.
fish. And they're looking at two regulatory features of the heart. So their ability to function spontaneously. So that's what they made. This thing was moving spontaneously. There was no brain in there. It was not being signaled, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that they wanted it to be able to message it. So mechano-electrical signaling, they call it. So then they were able to wire it up and make it do things with some electrical signals. And they were able to get all that to happen. This was done in Harvard, and this was a big deal to them.
Yeah. Heck yeah, it's a big deal.
Because this is on, and it's so cute too. You should go on. You can go. I'll put a link up in the show notes. But you can go on and YouTube and see this thing swimming around, and it's just a cute fish muscle thing that they made. It's like a little robot fish. So I just think it's really cool. It's cutting edge. It's not a fish, but they're calling it a fish.
Would you call it an organic robot, Clay?
I would call it an organic robot. Yeah. Except for the plastic on there. But I think we're on the way to something here. And that's just like the beginning. It's tiny, but it worked. And so I've been super kind of following this. I'm gonna see what happens next with all this kind of stuff. It's kind of exciting.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And the implications are someday, now that they've solved these two problems, not solved, but they've started to dive into a solution for these two problems, biomechanical hearts on the way. Because they just had a guy, a month ago, get was it a pig heart or a baboon heart? And
right?
Pig, and he just died. He died a couple days ago. So he was doing well for a while, then it kind of didn't work, and it hasn't worked. And so that may be the new direction. Maybe we can't put pig hearts in people, but maybe we can grow people hearts out of their own stem cells, and then your body won't reject it because it's your own body. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Unless you'd have an autoimmune disease, I bet that would make a difference.
I bet it would. I guess nothing so simple. Thanks, Doc.
Yeah.
Thanks for wrecking my party. So, but
sorry.
It was pretty exciting stuff. So that's all the news I have, Doc. So I'm gonna play my news outro music here.
That was good news.
That was good news.
Fish in the news. Everybody loves their fish in the news.
All right, Doc. So now I'm actually going to let you go because
sounds good. I got another meeting to hop off to.
And I have it's so nice out today. I've got some fishing to get to, but I will catch up with you later. And Doc, how can people find you again? What's your email?
erikacecocology@gmail.com.
And you always join the Fish Nerds Facebook group, and that's where Doc's hanging out all the time because she has nothing better to do.
Nothing. That didn't just get promoted or anything.
No, congratulations, Doc. Yay. All right, Doc, I'm going to let you get.
All right.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Clay. Bye.
Recording stopped.
Well, that was fun having Doc Martin on the show. Happy episode 300, Doc. Thanks for all you've done. And she's done even more for us. She's written some original music for us. So in a little bit, we're going to play that. But first, I want to kind of cycle back to thanking you for listening to the podcast over the last 10 years, 300 episodes, more than 500 files uploaded to our media host. So you've had lots of fun here with the Fish Nerds. And I'm going to invite you to be part of the 300 episode celebrations. I've got a prize package here. I've got a copy of Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller, who we interviewed in a previous podcast. I've got a box of jigs from the Crappie Hippie. Yeah, box of jigs, glass water, lead-free jigs. And I've got a Fish Nerds buff, all in a little package here, ready to mail out to you. And to win them, all you've got to do is call us, 607-378-FISH, 607-378-FISH, and leave us a message about what 300 episodes of Fish Nerds means, or congratulate us, or congratulate yourself for tolerating us for that long. Whatever it takes, have some fun with it. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on air. Enter to win that prize package. 607-378-FISH is the hotline, the Fish Nerds hotline. Say whatever you want, and we'll use it on a future episode. We're going to run this contest until April 30th. Is there 31 days? The last day of April, whatever, the 30th. And then you have a lot of time to get that call in. 607-378-FISH. And just leave us a message and you're in. That simple. Speaking of Patreon, we would not have a podcast for this long if it wasn't for our Patreon subscribers. And I don't spend nearly enough time thanking you. And a lot of people have come in the last couple of months. To be honest, I haven't been able to log on to my Patreon account in a couple of months. I'm back on it now. I had to do all this kind of research to reset passwords and stuff. So I got rewards coming out for those who deserve them very soon. Be patient. I'm getting back in the game here. But I do want to thank you all. And I got some special music from Doc Martin coming just for you on there. She wrote a couple silly songs that she didn't really want on the podcast, but I think for you guys, I can make a special one and send them out to you later this week. So I'm going to thank everybody who's currently on our Patreon. And if you're a previous Patreon subscriber, we do appreciate you too. I just don't have a list of previous people. So in no particular order, here we go. Sparky Jackson, thank you. David, and I'm going to say your name's wrong because that's how I roll. David Dumetruscu, thank you. Matthew Clinsmith, thanks. Chuck Hobble, thank you so much. James Paul McNeil, glad you're with us. Knitting Daddy Grade, he makes podcasts. He did me little things here and there. Thank you. Kevin Jones, thanks. Dave, Williamson, thank you. Olaf Nelson, been with us for a while. Chandler Dobson, thank you. Christopher Englert, thank you. Mike O'Keefe, John's Soundboard. I like that. Thank you, John Soundboard. Chad O'Leary, thanks. Alan Byrne, thank you so much. Been with us a long time. Renegade Clock, thank you. And Courtney D, thank you so much. Anthony Dipolito, you are awesome. Thank you so much. And let's see what else we got. Jonathan Sutter, awesome. Thank you. B.A. Met, my friend Bethany, thank you. Sean Bradbury, you're awesome. Thank you. Ed Hind, happy you're with us. Rich Collins, Rich Collins is still with us after all these years. Andrew Lewin from the Speak Up for Lou podcast. Kevin Kupzik, thank you. Reed Sutter, awesome that you're here. Fish Guy Josh, haven't heard from you in a long time, Fish Guy. Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast is giving us money. David Redden, thank you. David Redden from Maryland, making his own YouTube channel. Ray Layton from England, thank you so much. Lindsay Freeman, you are awesome. Jeff Donaldson, our effing librarian. Ryan, no last name, thank you. And my mother-in-law, Suzanne Nelson. Thank you so much, everybody. Without that Patreon money, we would not have a podcast. And just a few dollars goes a long month. We're asking people to give us like $5 a month. Simple. And you can go to patreon.com/fishnerds, or just go to patreon.com and look for the Fish Nerds. And you can give us money that way. And we're going to keep the show going. 300 episodes. We're excited to keep on going. Now, let's get into some music with Doc Martin. I've got 3 songs from Doc. First one's called SOARS. The next one is 535. And then Fish Shanty is the last one. Kind of a fun one there. So I'm going to play them all right in order. And then that will wrap the show up. And again, 607-378-FISH is our Fish Nerds hotline. And we got that prize package for you. So give us a call, leave us a voicemail. And it's that simple. And of course, Patreon subscribers, you're going to get 3 songs from Doc Martin. One's called Evolution, one's called Hagfish, and one's called Bloodfish. She won't like them, send them to you, but I'm doing it anyway. Here is your music.
Yay.
The serene succumbs to nature's ebb and flow. Watch it float as the currents sing. She'll open up and burst
Take 3.5.
Do these fishes feel pain? Oh, when we're gone, what will remain? Got all these questions in my brain. Why ain't go the chase goes on? Why do some of these fish show up on froze up? Where did they go? Why are some fish fast or slow? Savvy shot of rum. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Algivores, well, they eat algae. Piscivores eat other fishies. Invertivores eat little buggies. No dive with an isotope. Anadromous go fresh, so fresh. Catadromous the opposite. Diadromous even bigger yet. Do all fish migrate? Nope. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Some fish can make antifreeze. Other fish live inside of trees. I don't know, can fishes sneeze? Why ain't good the chase goes on? Fishes are the first with lungs. If you want weird, check out the tongues. Come on, let's hear it, everyone. Oh, fishes can't be beat. Oh, fishes can't be beat. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Read a book, then mull it over. Have a thought, then think it over. Build a dam, still fish got over. Fish nerds on our journey. Oh, come on, let's take a journey.
Whether you're fly fishing in a stream, getting
Oh, I forgot to say the things. You think in 300 episodes I'd get it right. Hey, thank you so much for tuning into the Fish Nerds podcast. You've listened to a bunch of fish nerds when you should have been fishing. Big fat thanks to Doc Martin, all the Fish Nerds correspondents, all the Patreon subscribers, everyone who's listened and interacted over the years. Thanks to Wally Pleasant for our theme music. Thank you to let's see, who else? Diane's Bath Salts for, I didn't write this stuff down, for the music for the Fish in the News, and everybody else who's given us some fun stuff over the years. We will still be with you, and we look forward to next week's Fish Nerds podcast. Now we can, until next time, follow the code of the Fish Nerds, spawn early and often, never trust a free lunch with strings attached, and swim against the current every chance you get.
Those ankles wet, or deep in the ocean, casting nets. Fish Nerds. Fish Nerds. Fish Nerds. It's a podcast.
Just for the halibut!
Fried in a basket or broiled in a pan. Eat it raw like you're in Siam. Fish Nerds. Fish Nerds. Fish Nerds. It's a podcast.